I'd like to maybe close up and talk about liturgy. It seems to me that, especially in the United States, but globally, in the past 12 to 24 months, it was reported by the Fraternity of St. Peter, Institute of Christ the King, Society of St. Pius X, traditional parishes, traditional orders, a massive increase, some places 2 to 3 times growth just in the past year or two. It seems that we are seeing a renaissance or revival of traditional liturgy. I mean, it's been happening since Lefebvre and others in the 1970s, but I think this crisis, when you see the worship of Pachamama, you see the Abu Dhabi document, confusion coming from Rome, people think, okay, we need to get reconnected to our traditional roots. Like you said at the beginning of our interview, Athanasius, the Bible hadn't been canonized yet. He didn't always have the support of the Pope, but he knew he was rooted in the tradition that came before him from the apostles. So that same idea is now, and it's having liturgical manifestation. So can you speak to your own devotion to the traditional Latin Mass and the traditional seven sacraments and the traditional breviary? And then if you have time, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the pre-1955 Holy Week.
Yes. First, as you mentioned, this is a sign of hope in the midst of darkness. This increasing of the traditional Mass, I consider them small lights in the night, which are lightening the night. And so every new place of traditional Mass is a new light in the night. And so the night becomes brighter. So this is first. And then to my mind comes the phrase of St. Paul: the more the sin increases, the more grace increases. And so you mentioned the increasing of this confusion with Abu Dhabi, with Pachamama cult, and so on. The more the Lord is increasing in the church the graces of the true tradition, the traditional masses, as you see. And it is also my experience in the last year in other parts of the world. The traditional mass is increasing among young people, and this is a proof that the Holy Ghost is working in the church. This is for me at the beginning of clear springtime of the church. This is the springtime of the church. And I call all these places and good people who love the tradition, especially I call them the spiritual snowdrops who are coming in the midst of the winter, announcing the springtime. So this is the first. To your question, of course, I started to celebrate the Latin Mass, the traditional Mass, suddenly after the motu proprio of Pope Benedict in 2007. And my first feeling was, after I celebrated my first Mass, I felt that I was only an instrument. I was never so much feeling the truth that I am a servant, even a slave, in a good sense. That in this Mass, I had no freedom, my own. I only fulfilled the prescriptions of another, ultimately of Christ, because the liturgy is from the church and this is not mine. And this was so healthy spiritually. And this I wish every priest and bishop and to the Pope to experience this, to celebrate the Mass in this spirit. And then the objective richness of the prayers of the order, it is incomparable with the new Mass, this richness. And the gestures, so many genuflections, bowing, and sign of the cross, and so on. This all lifts up our mind to God more. Sursum corda. This is really taking us on high. Even, of course, I can celebrate the Mass. Let us say, and there were cases in the persecution, priests in the gulags and in the camp of concentration.
Mhm.
They had no time to celebrate because they were coming the police. And let us say they had only 10 minutes to celebrate, and then they were taken from the police. But in this short time, they wanted to celebrate Mass and to have Jesus in the Eucharist.
Mhm.
And so these bishops and priests in the gulags, in the camps, it was the old rite in those times, they only made the essential, maybe some part in the consecration, and could not make all these gestures,
Mhm.
and only the essential. But because of necessity, there was no other choice.
Right.
And so the Mass was valid and also pleasing to God, of course, in
Of
these
course.
camps. But this is not an argument that now we will celebrate
Right.
usually the Mass in 10 minutes with all these reduced gestures and so on. And in some way, I compare the new Mass, such a reduced form of minimally reduced gestures of veneration
Mhm.
and the content of the prayers. It's so rich, really. It is lifting up in the supernatural and stressing the essence of the Mass, which is the cross, the sacrifice of the cross. And this is the most important aspect. And the same with other sacraments. They are stressing more the supernatural, the sacredness, our dependence of God, the greatness of grace, and the new rite, even in the other sacraments, they have a light tendency to a anthropocentristic way to make the sacraments more intellectually abstract, a kind of moments of too much intellectual instructions and pedagogics, and so not so much the mystery. To live this in an attitude of deep faith before the mystery of God and in humility. And this is more stressed in the old rites of the sacraments, and also in the old rite sacraments, they are more stressed the connection with the Old Testament. This is where we came
Mhm.
without rupture. So God prepared in the Old Testament, and so in the celebrations of the sacraments, according to the old rite, there are more elements from the Old Testament prayers or some parts, allusions. Well, and then to your last question about the pre-55 rites, it is evident when you compare the pre-55 and the 55 rites of the Holy Week, it is a difference,
Yeah.
and we have to my opinion, it is a loss in the reform of 55, a evident loss
Yes.
of more sacredness, of more this organic tradition which was present in the church.
Yeah.
And the 55 rites have a tendency, a clear tendency of intellectualizing the liturgy.
Mhm.
Intellectualizing the liturgy. This is a Protestant slight tendency to make the liturgy more intellectual.
Yes.
So these new fabricated rites in the 55, they are fabricated. Uh, they were not growing organically through centuries. And the old 55 rites, the more stressing the sublimity, and also they are lasting longer time. Yes, we have to take time at least once a year in the Holy Week to give God more time.
Yes.
Let us last
Yes.
more. Even the Orthodox Christians and the Byzantine Rite, they have so long services in Holy Week. They are longer
Yes.
than our pre-55 liturgy, for example.
Yes. And fasting
And fasting.
for them.
So we have to restore the fasting bodily, So, to my opinion, we have to restore.
Yeah.
For example, our friends, because I'm living here with the majority of Christians are Orthodox in Kazakhstan. I have a lot of friends, and when they start to Lent time, all they do not eat meat until Easter completely.
Awesome.
Every 40 days without meat, and even 40 days without any food from animal,
Yes.
without milk, without cheese, and butter, and so. And they are living with joy the Lent time. They have other food because this is a very strong sign. Now we are a special time of making some sacrifices to our body,
Hmm.
and it should be restored
Yes.
in some way. And
Yes.
so, and the breviary, of course, the breviary is very rich, but there was also to my opinion, a very sad reform of the breviary, which made Pius X,
Yes.
913.
Hmm.
When you compare this, it's really a loss of richness, of the pedagogical and very harmonious flow of the Psalms,
Yes.
this order, which was in Rome always the same since Gregory the Great, and before him, the so-called Cursus Romanus,
Mm.
Psalmorum. And how could a pope simply destroy a manner of prayer which was kept and prayed at least 1,500 years by all the saints which we know? It is for me incredible.
Yes.
I don't understand this, and the fact itself that a pope says I have the authority to make a, a reform in such a way, drastic. It's for me a kind of abuse of papal power,
Yes.
and unfortunately, Pope Pius X did this. I very much venerate him, and he is one of my beloved saints.
Yes.
But when you have a saint and a friend, you can also say to him some critique.
Yes.
And this is true friendship.
Yes.
And so he was not infallible in this way. When he made the reform of the breviary, Pope Pius the Ninth was not infallible.
Right.
He did not this ex cathedra. So he could make an error. And he did.
Right.
And I'm convinced that the church will return to the breviary of all times
Mm.
as the Mass of all times, the Holy Week of all times
Mm.
will return because the church has a good memory.
Yes.
She is keeping this.
Yes.
And so, and this is nothing against the holiness of this Pope, and also nothing against the holiness of Pius XII.
Right.
The saints did also some prudential errors.
Yes.
This is human. They are not God. Only God
Yes.
is without any error and fault,
Mm.
sinless. And
Yes.
so we have to be confident that the church is our mother. Our God is guiding our mother church in this very difficult time. And let us accept this even in a spirit of faith and in expiation, reparation for the sins which are now committing in the world and in the church, and imploring with a humble, contrite heart and with a new zeal the renewal of the church, a new generation of holy priests, a new generation of holy, strong popes should be.
Yes. Amen.
And this will come.
Yes.
We have to believe because the church is in the hands of God. And Our Lady, she is the mother of the church.
And
And she is conquering the devil, all the heresies. And so let us entrust to her powerful hands, Immaculate Heart, it is our crisis, Pope Francis, that he may convert and to be a true zealous vicar of Christ on earth. And so let us be good missionaries and continue with conviction and with joy our Catholic faith and life, because we know whom we believe.